the best way to run a successful small business is to run a really profitable one.
Yeah, the profit is the key word there, and revenue just doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. If you're not profitable, who cares how much
It's fun
you
to
make?
see sometimes, but if you're, if it's all going out and your margins aren't any good and you're not, there's no profit left, what's the point?
Or if you're running your low volume, high margin business as if it's a high volume, low margin business, then you're not putting anything in the bank. And it's not about what you make. It's about what you keep.
This is appointment only. Your appointment starts now. Why are you late? We almost canceled on you.
You had 10 minutes and you barely squeaked in.
In our business, you get, if we're going to see you for the first time, you get 15-minute grace period. And if you're not there, we cancel you. We do tell people this. And then for the final fitting,
You get 10
minutes.
10 minutes. That's, I think, pretty standard procedure in like a college classroom, isn't it? If the teacher is, or the professor is 10 minutes late,
That never happened to me.
class is canceled. It happened to me once.
That never happened to me. But yeah, that seems fair. I mean, if you're running, that's one of my big pet peeves is when someone's so inconsiderate of your time that they're running so late. I actually don't care if you're late, but you have to tell me.
And I'm sure this has happened to you too. But anytime we hear that somebody's 10 minutes late, they're really 25 minutes late. Like
Yeah,
they,
when
they
they
already
call.
know.
When they
and
call,
the thing is,
yeah.
we have too much technology now for you to miss by 15 minutes. Like, you're
Right.
running 25 minutes late.
There's
And
no excuse for
what
it.
we do in that situation, it's like, okay, well, if you're going to be 25 minutes late, then you don't get to see the least expensive options anymore.
Boom.
We're going to make it worth our while.
Life hack. Yeah, I mean, you don't get the whole, if you're 25 minutes late and you're not able or willing to reschedule, then fine, we'll get it done, but something's got to give.
Yeah.
We can't go through everything. So if we get to choose what we're going through, you don't get to see the least expensive stuff because you're going to pay. You're going to pay.
There's going to be some continued getting to know us, and you will see me reach into my pocket and grab my Burt's Bees.
I'm off Burt's Bees.
What are you on now?
I didn't replace it with anything else. I just
Crack.
I'm on crack. Meth.
You look
Actually.
like you're on crack, honestly.
Yeah.
You do.
I could probably ditch these last few pesky 5 pounds. No, I didn't replace it with anything.
You do look like you're on crack.
Thank you. Thank you. That's really nice.
DM Kenny that he looks like he's on crack.
Yep. No, I did not. I used to always have.
Your teeth are too good to be on crack. That's the telltale sign. That's the telltale
it's
sign.
one of them.
Well, yeah.
It's
and
one of them.
I'm not like a law enforcement officer. So
Although we
I don't know.
have police haircuts.
we go into the barbershop and we say, give me the police officer.
I'll have the officer Warren. No, so speaking of haircuts, what is going on with men getting the stupid like Game of Thrones peasant boy haircut?
Well, okay.
You know what I'm talking about?
I was going to say, what's up with men of a certain age growing their hair out?
Yeah, that too.
Like, grow up,
I know.
right? And where does it stop?
Here's what I think.
Let me just finish this.
Oh, okay.
Where does it stop? Does it stop with a man bun? Does it stop with a ponytail? What's the end goal here as you're like growing your hair out as a mid to late 30 something, maybe early 40 something, mid 40? Where does growing your hair out end?
I think you get to the point where it's somewhat of a flex if you still have your hair and you like have enough to grow out. Maybe that's it. Like none of their friends have their hair left.
But still, where does it end? Does it end in a ponytail?
Ponytail.
That's insane.
That's the dream.
Because
isn't that the dream?
But everybody wants to have a ponytail.
What I was going to say is I find it, and I apologize if this is you. You might want to do some soul searching. But
I apologize if you have a ponytail and
I don't.
And you're 35.
Absolutely not. But I apologize if this is you, but I don't understand. Maybe you can help me, fill me in. What's going on? I can't stand when men, especially, it's different for women, totally different for women. But when men mess with their hair all the time. Like they're always doing something new and then they're talking about it. It's one thing to experiment and be trying things and like you have a relationship with a barber or something and you're like working through stuff. It's another thing entirely where it becomes, an offshoot of your own personality where you're the one bringing up your hair. What do you think of my hair? Should I dye it? Fill out the poll on Instagram. Like I think it's so silly. And again, I think it's probably very ponytail adjacent where they're curious about, I don't know what it is specifically, but there's something weird. And I'm going to end my little haircut rant on this. I don't understand the new hairdo. It used to be the broccoli hair, which is insane. The Patrick Mahomes, where it looks like a little, the floret.
Oh,
broccoli
yeah.
on
Well,
top.
that's still in.
Right. But now the haircut that I'm seeing a lot of is, like I said, it's like the Game of Thrones peasant boy haircut where
like
the bangs hang down.
Bangs,
and it's like a straight across, like a straight, like straggly line.
Here's my
I don't understand it.
2 points.
Oh my gosh, I have to show you this. I asked ChatGPT yesterday, what would be a good hairstyle for me? You will not believe what they showed.
I think when people have the peasant haircut, I think they're trying to hide a recession of the hairline. That's my 2 cents on that.
Oh.
The other thing is, let's say you have a ponytail and your name is like Dave or Brad.
Ponytail Dave.
People are talking about
Ponytail Pete.
and they're saying, oh, I was with Dave, and they're like, Dave, who?
Which Dave?
Ponytail Dave.
Absolutely. Okay, hairstyle creation. I said, what would be a good hairstyle for me? And I posted that picture, one of our new pictures from our headshots. This is what they gave the first one. They changed my face too. I'll put these on.
They're like, not only will we show you the hair you should have, but we'll show you the face that would look best.
You might consider a nose widening procedure. These will be on our Instagram appointment only pod. Are you ready for the best one?
Oh my Lord. No.
They put Patrick Mahomes' hair on my face.
They did.
Like, I'm sorry. There's a number of reasons why that's not going to work.
Yeah. Seriously.
So I don't know. Maybe that's their inspiration. Maybe
they changed your watch too.
What? Oh yeah. They gave me a different watch. I don't want that watch. I like mine. They also changed my tie. So ChatGPT is good for some things, but it's
they buffed you up too.
It's not going to take over the world anytime soon. No worries. You've kept your job for now.
Stop being so hyper worried about ChatGPT stealing your job.
Yeah, that's not going to happen. All right. So let me get out. My iPad, by the way, is like public enemy number one.
Casual banter, check. We were a part of this networking group.
Oh,
I'm not sure if
this networking group, by the way, is where we met our former tax preparer who stole tens of thousands of dollars from us, which is a full episode coming to you soon.
63 something thousand was the most recent number that we heard from one source.
It's more than that.
Yeah. We'll get into all that, but had this.
Do you said the name of the organization? Is that a problem?
Well, we'll bleep it if it was a problem. Can we?
I don't know. It's a networking organization that sounds a lot like BMI.
BMI. Yeah.
We'll call it BMI. Wink.
Okay. Well, I feel like podcasts are like, oh yeah, you can swear, you can do
shit.
Do, oh fuck.
Holy shit.
Holy shit.
Yeah, you're right. You know what?
What the heck?
What the heck?
With the HE double hockey sticks.
Oh, damn. Yeah. So we're going to let it rip.
We're just letting it roll.
We're letting it roll.
This guy doesn't give a shit.
Shit. I don't give a shit. Fuck.
We were in a networking group and they had, at the very beginning, they had 15 minutes of scheduled, unstructured networking time.
Very cool.
Feel free to do whatever you want.
Very casual. Feel very, very unstructured. I hope you all enjoy.
15 minutes is up.
Speaking of things, I mean, if you made it through our last episode, we mentioned that we used to go to like networking groups. Listen, those of you who like networking, and there are some of you are awesome networkers, and I wish I was.
And let me just say, lean in, because there are people like us
who will never do it.
Not only do we not like it, but we're bad at it. We ended up, when we were doing these things, we would just talk to ourselves in the corner and make fun of people in the room. And
no,
that
didn't.
I know we wouldn't
make
do that.
fun of people. No.
But see, podcasts are the time where you get to create your own reality.
And when I showed up, they would all say, "Rockstar guys here."
And then I was like doing pull-ups in the back,
and they're like,
they were like 127.
They were like, you guys are so cool, like amazing.
So that was our networking
None
experience.
Of that's true.
That was our networking experience.
Why were you talking about networking?
All this to say, well, because I said casual banter is over. Check.
Unstructured casual conversation accomplished.
Unstructured networking time is over. And now it's time to get into the meat and potatoes, if you will.
This is appointment only. Today, we're talking about something as it relates to business that we've experienced firsthand, as well as, especially through our coaching, we hear a lot from people about this particular thing. It's about timing. When's the timing right? And it can be anything. It can be, hey, when should I go full time? Or when should I hire someone? Or who should I hire? Or
when should my casual networking be over?
Yes, that's number
15
one.
minutes on the dot. That's when.
But it's about timing for things and when should I move? When should I open up a location? When should I make this investment in myself or my business? And the timing question is a great one. And I think we have a kind of insightful perspective on it because we've experienced a lot of different things over our career.
And I was going to say, there are some things that do make sense to plan out. And it's important to have a plan, I think, certainly. Quite frankly, I think one thing that's important as a business owner is to be a touch more pessimistic than you may be hopeful for. I think one mistake we made when we were really early on in business, and it took our business mentor to say, hey guys, the cart is before the horse. I still remember those words. I still remember sitting at a Starbucks with him when he said those words, the cart's before the horse. And I remember feeling like pretty thrown off by that because it was somebody who was telling me something that I didn't want to hear.
And we were just getting to know him, and it was probably
second conversation,
first or second time ever meeting him. And
well, the first time we met him was also at a Starbucks with Don, who we told you about in our intro episode, who we started the tie line with. And I think this was the first time we were ever just with King. Is we were telling him about this and about that and about our plans for this. And he just says, carts before the horse.
Total side note, this will, I'm sure, come up over time, but Kingford, our mentor, one of the first things I remember, there's a couple things that I remember about him from the very early days of getting to know him. The first was there were elements of him that reminded me of our grandpa, also named Kenny King, but there were certain, just his demeanor and his sort of very, very low key energy. Like, Kingford is such an impressive guy, and my grandpa was too, but they just carry themselves just in such a relaxed way.
And I think one thing that has always reminded me of Grandpa King with Kingford, is when he decides to speak, you better listen.
Yeah, you're leaning in because he's not someone who just lets it
He's
fly.
not like us where it's just like nonstop and we're constantly talking.
And I'm going to have a podcast because I have a lot to say.
Because I can't wait to listen to it myself.
That's not that's not what appointment only is about. But Danny's right.
There are those people that you know, and I'm sure when I'm saying this, you're thinking of a few people yourself in your life. Hopefully you are. We'll talk about the importance of mentorship. Of course, it's going to continue to come up. We're 2 episodes in and we're talking about it again. But there are those people who they don't say a lot. But when they do say something, it matters. And I always kind of selfishly wish I was a little bit more like that.
I do.
Like, I wish people would be saying that about me, but I know 100% nobody is saying that about me.
No,
nobody has ever said, when Danny King opens his mouth, you better pay attention because it's going to be impactful.
No. Well, they do on opposite day.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, they do.
It's opposite.
Not.
They sure do. Yeah, they do. Not.
Oh, I was crossing my fingers.
Doesn't count.
So that was the first thing I ever remember about Kingford. There was just something about him that I was like, man, he reminds me of Grandpa King. And I just was drawn to that immediately. The other thing I always admired, and we've become this too, which I'm proud of. I always admired how unapologetic he was.
Oh, yeah. Almost to a point of feeling like in our stage of business, when we were getting to know Kingford and we would be around him in business settings, we were like, whoa, that is just brutal what he just said.
I know, it was kind of uncomfortable. It's like, I felt like I shouldn't be in the room. We're from Minnesota, and there's like this element of, it isn't Minnesota nice.
It's not
I
Minnesota
don't care
nice.
who you are, or it isn't true. Minnesota nice is a total farce. It's not true. What it is it's Minnesota passive aggressive. So we're not going to say what we think to your face so that, it gets mistaken for nice, but then we're going to let it fly when you leave. And of course, isn't true of everyone, but that's been my experience. Is it's not that people are so nice; it's just they don't really say what they're thinking.
But I remember being in certain rooms, and in our business, there's the rooms I'm talking about is rooms where we're sourcing fabric for what we do. And I remember being in some of these rooms with Kingford, really early stages of our business, and somebody would be trying to pitch something to Kingford, and he'd just be like, "Not interested, no." And it's not like he's being mean; he's just getting to the point. He's just like, "Hey, don't waste your time on me. I'm not interested in what you have to provide to me." And I remember like there was a part of me that was like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe how he's acting." Not in a I'm ashamed to be associated with him way.
No, not at all.
But in like I can't imagine delivering bad news to
and how
somebody
that must feel to have that confidence to be able to know so specifically what your needs are and aren't, but then to be able to articulate it like that in a way that's so direct, it felt right away like, oh man, I would never say that.
One of the cool things about having like a true mentor in your life is you end up just find somebody you want to be more like. Boom, there's your mentor. Done. You don't have to think too hard about it. And I think people are always surprised when they actually seek somebody out, how willing that person is to be around them. I think mentorship has this like really scary association where it has to be structured, and we have to have a plan, and we have to have all of these specific, itemized things we're going to discuss in our next meeting or our next appointment only pod on Instagram. It's just not that serious.
It's not so serious.
It's not
not rocket science. And you're right. Most people are really receptive. And these days, there's so many mentorship groups you can join, and you can be connected to people. We have a mentorship group for our custom clothing business of luxury custom clothiers who want to run custom clothing businesses like ours. And it's been going great. We've been seeing awesome results. We're able to feed directly into people who want a specific set of goals that have a specific outcome in mind, because most custom clothiers don't have the exact same goals as our mentorship group does. And it's a very small group on purpose, and it's not open, to the public right now. And we're only opening it up on select times. So there's a wait list you can join, but it isn't for everyone. And we know that. And mentorship comes in all shapes and sizes. And for us, we were very fortunate to know someone who was willing to work with us and spent tons of time with us and had the time to do that, and was in our specific industry.
And from the moment I laid eyes on Kingford, I was able to identify, I want to be more like that. And then as we got to know him, I kept saying, I want to be more like that. I want to be more like that. And I think it's really encouraging now, looking back at the way that we operate and what feels naturally to us now, where it's like, man, we learned that unapologetic attitude from Kingford in one of the hotel suites in New York on 54th Street.
And thank God we did, because I wonder what we would be like and what our business would look like and what our mindset would feel like if we never would have met him. It's obviously it's impossible to know, but you do think about all of the things and the people you meet. And what do they say? There's like, maybe a handful of people you meet in your life that totally change the trajectory of where you're headed. And he definitely is one of those people for us. Speaking of mentors, he's not the only one we have. Let's just dive into some of these stories, because what we're talking about today is the idea of timing and what's right and when do I know it's right? And that's the $1 million question. When is it right to do these things? So we wanted to share a few stories of our experience and different things that required some strategic planning and timing. And one of the questions we get all the time from people.
Which, by the way, just to sort of set this up, is when we first started our business, and it was the tie business originally, we had a whole business plan written up, and it was actually really good. And
was it really good, or what did we?
I think it was really good. Okay. I do think it was really good. Nothing happened according to the business plan. So there is an element of timing and preparation that you can do, but it probably not going to matter.
Ultimately, all these stories are going to boil down to it's never going to feel like the right time. And that was something that we have another mentor named Jeff. And he was the guy who, if you listen to our last episode, we mentioned ties. We did a line of ties that was with Jeff through his company. And Jeff was someone we got to know through going to the trade shows in New York. And we had known him for years. And at this point, we were doing this business, but we were doing it on the side. And we were having a conversation with him, and he said something that I'll never forget.
Well, let me, sorry. I apologize that I'm interrupting, but that's part of the fun of podcasts.
And that's part of the unstructured
networking time is every time we would see Jeff, he would ask us, what's next? Jeff saw something in us before we identified what it was that we actually wanted for our business. And he would ask us very pointed questions that looking back, I can identify now. But he would always ask us, guys, like the ties thing is cool that you're doing that. Like, I appreciate the support, appreciate the business. But what's next for you? What's next for your career in the clothing industry? He would always ask us these things. And finally, we were seeing him again. And
he said something that I'll never forget. He said, you're never going to make it work if you don't have to make it work. And we sat there.
Speaking of things you just don't want to hear.
Yeah. I mean, a great mentor will say something to you that you need to hear, even though you don't want to hear it, but they'll say it in a way that's respectful and challenging. So he said, you're never going to make it work if you don't have to make it work. And then he followed it up by explaining it in a way that he was just saying, if you have something to fall back on, like our other jobs, our goal was to go full time with our clothing business. That's not everybody's goal. Some people like having a side hustle. That's fine. That wasn't our goal. He knew our goal was to be full-time in custom clothing, and we just kept making excuses for why it wasn't going to work. Granted, they were good excuses because I was under a TV contract, so I couldn't exactly just quit. So we had real reasons, but he said, as long as you have a safety net and something to fall back on, you're never going to have to make it work. So how would it ever work? And how will you know if it's working if you don't have to rely on it? Now, that's the scariest place you could ever be in, where you actually need to make something work. But he was right.
He was absolutely right. And essentially what he was telling us is this won't work unless you change the trajectory of your entire life. Unless you flush everything that you thought you knew about your careers and what your life is going to look like down the toilet and start over.
And you talk about the timing not being right. I remember when we eventually decided, it was that same year. I mean, it was like the next opportunity I had to take the next step. My contract for TV was due to be up in December, and our TV station was in a staff changeover. And my news director called me into his office, and it was in early August. So September, October, November, 4 months. No, I think it was July. Whatever. It was months in advance. It was certainly more than a 2 weeks notice, which is what was required legally. So my news director calls me into his office and he says, okay, Kenny, I need to know, are we hiring a co-anchor for you for the next contract, or are we hiring a replacement for you if for some reason you're not planning to renew your contract? And I said, well, this is way sooner than I was planning to make this announcement, but I am not planning to renew my contract because I am going to go full time with King Brothers. And he was great. And he said, sounds awesome. We will not make that announcement official yet, but we will start making moves there. And I called Danny as soon as I left and I said, well, I guess we're going full time. I just resigned from my job, essentially. And that was it. And you talk about when someone asks me, when's the timing going to be right for me to go full time? My answer is it's never going to be right. There's never a magic time where it makes the most sense. All you can do is make an educated, informed decision, and with the knowledge that you're never actually going to make it work unless you have to.
And that's Kenny's story. And my story on the flip side there was, my career was not going to turn into any sort of a prominent, televised career.
Well, mine was, ask mom. She said I should cut it on national. She says I was the best broadcaster. So I was doing things, people. It was big things. And you should have seen me.
I was a success.
You should have seen how good I was.
Just about to become successful.
Just ask my mommy. She'll tell you.
But what I was going to say is for me, the fear wasn't, here's this career I'm giving up. The fear for me was when Kenny called me, I was married. I had a mortgage and I had one kid, but the other was going to be born.
Oh, like days later.
Yeah. And so that was my story. And that's also terrifying. Where I'm not necessarily thinking about like, this is a career upset and a career change, but my timing not being right was just the stage of life that I was in. So quite frankly, I don't care when I hear people making excuses for themselves about why they're not going to do something or why the timing's wrong. I will never forget this. This is another thing too.
Did you want to take a drink before you finish this? Because this is, I don't know how this is coming through in your speakers, but I tell you what, I'm getting the heebie-jeebies listening to the frog in that throat.
So this is San Pellegrino. If you know what, podcasters get parched. That's just the reality.
We got ourselves a parched podcaster.
It's behind the scenes, behind the curtain look. We get thirsty as podcasters.
And you know what? This leads us to our sponsor, Pellegrino, for parched podcasters. I wish we had, who should be our first sponsor?
Lagunitas Hoppy Refresher.
Yeah, Lagunitas Hoppy Refresher. If you're looking to invest in a couple of up-and-comers, young, vibrant, real promising young men. young men. When was the last 37-year-old, just fresh guys?
Yeah. When was the last time somebody said a young man?
No one has called me a young man.
Well, that's because you look like you're on crack. Anyway, I will never forget this. This was very shortly after we had gone full time, and we were connecting up with a friend from I think high school.
Growing up friend.
And we were getting together because we didn't have anything going on. It's just like
we were just making ourselves busy. We were, how it goes.
I remember he had like this sort of side hustle business that he was doing, and he looked at us straight in the face and he said, "I'm so glad that you guys went full time, but I have too much at stake to do that for myself." And he did it with a straight face.
He wasn't joking.
And he had one kid. He also had a wife. He also had a house. But he had one kid fewer than me.
So he was in sort like the exact same situation as you were, but not quite as many kids.
Yeah, one fewer. And I will never forget that moment.
What were you feeling?
I was feeling like it wasn't a rage, but it was more so like, I feel sorry for you that you're listening to the excuses that you're telling yourself. I feel sorry for you that you're going to work in a job you actually don't like for X number of years, or maybe even forever. And you're always going to look back and wonder what could have happened if you would have done what you knew you wanted to do. And that's the reality of some of these decisions that you make as a small business owner, is the action is much more important than the timing, because you already know the timing's not going to be right. I mean, think about the other big decisions that exist in life. Is the timing ever right all the way?
No. And I think there's an argument to be made that sometimes maybe the timing is wrong, where maybe, I mean, before we went full time and I left my TV job, I was due another 2-year contract, and I went in and I negotiated a 1-year extension, because I knew that the timing was wrong to go full time at the end of that term, but I also wasn't feeling like I could commit for another 2 years. So we made a compromise. So in that sense, yeah, the timing was wrong and the timing wasn't right. But even when the opportunity arose then for me to actually take the leap, the timing wasn't right either. But it was it was not ideal, but it ended up working out.
You had to tell people X number of months early. I then had to immediately go to my boss and tell him. And it just felt uncomfortable, because it totally was. And for what it's worth, our business had made in that previous year before we went full time, our business hadn't even grossed what one of the two of our salaries was. So on paper, it wasn't the right time.
And let's just be clear too. When you're in small market TV, I was making $30,000 a year. So everyone always thought I was rich because I was on TV.
And because you drove a Rendezvous.
A Buick Rendezvous? Yeah, I did. And so life was good.
Rich guy alert.
But it was such a struggle. And financially, it didn't feel like a huge leap for me to quit my job other than I lost my benefits. But it's like, I'm not really giving up much financially. I'm not making anything here, but that was something that I think sometimes people think that I was able to like squirrel away all this money and then we're like living off of my TV fortune when we went full time, but that it could not have been further from the truth.
Yes. And you gave up a $30-something thousand job, but on the trajectory to make six figures, which at the time in our life was like unheard of money.
I remember the first time we made in a month what I made in a year at my TV job. And I was like floored. And it wasn't that quick it wasn't that long after we went full time. I mean, it wasn't right away, but it didn't take that long before we were having consistent like $30,000 months. And I remember being absolutely blown away. Like I had no idea that this was even possible to do this. And I didn't even know what to say. It was absolutely unbelievable to me.
All that to say, it's never going to feel like the right time. You can never plan it out perfectly. And that's not dissimilar from many, many other really big decisions in life.
Having kids, buying a house, moving.
Depending on who you ask, it's always the wrong time to buy a house.
Oh yeah. Depends on who you're asking. Depends on when you're asking.
And you know what? Some people don't want to own a house, and that's fine too.
Yeah.
Like they don't want to deal with the upkeep. They'd rather just rent. And I get it. And there's nothing wrong with the people who don't want to own a house or own other pieces of real estate. There's nothing wrong with them. They just don't want the same things. And as entrepreneurs, we all want different things too. And we're speaking, I think, uniquely to those of you out there who want to run a small business that doesn't run you. You want to run a small business that you're able to make really great money. You're also able to go to your kids' sporting events. You're also able to take vacations, and you don't have to work 10-hour days. That's who we're speaking to. That's what we want. That's what we found a lot of contentment and a lot of joy in is that type of a business. And I think that type of contentment is super underrated in business.
Absolutely. I mean, it's not like the grind hustle mantra culture that is all over everywhere.
But you know what we know about ourselves now is we actually know that we're capable of hustling. We're capable of grinding. And I also know myself well enough to know that I don't enjoy it.
I'll do it. But
so we can create as entrepreneurs, we're all in a unique space to create something that we want. That whatever our definition of success is as entrepreneurs, with the right plan of attack, we can create that for ourselves. That's what makes entrepreneurs more unique, and it positions us in a super interesting way where whatever we want, we can go after it. We might not always get it, but we can at least strive for it. Where were we?
We were talking about all sorts of different things, but ultimately the theme was timing and full time, and that's really where this started. But you fill in the blank. It doesn't have to be going full time. It's when's the timing? What's the timing going to look like for me to hire my first employee? That's a question we get a lot. I need to hire someone. When should I? Do it today. I mean, I know you need to you probably read some resumes, but you hire someone before they're necessary so that you can get them trained, so that when it eventually does end up getting to the point where we did this with our first assistant at the time, we hired her way before we needed her. And then all of a sudden we got busy and it was perfect because we already had a trained employee. And it was a great thing. We grew together. She still works with us. One thing that's a big one that we get here all the time from people that we coach and random people sending us DMs is, when should I raise my prices?
Oh, we got to spend some time on this.
We got to spend some time on this, but then I want to talk about moving locations too, because that's another thing that is very fresh. We're in the middle of doing it, and we've done it. This will be our fourth time moving. So maybe we should talk about that first, then we can end with prices.
Sounds good.
Because I know you get fired up on prices.
I do get fired up on prices.
So we can end in a blaze of glory. But moving locations is one of those things. When we got our first location, we were able to operate our custom clothing business remotely, like mobily, going to people's homes and offices for, I don't know, all of 6 months.
Little while.
And then all of a sudden we recognized, this isn't what we want. This isn't the pace that we want to live. We don't want to be spending all this time sitting in the car in traffic trying to go see someone for much less than we deserve to make. So what we're going to do is we paired up with a couple of our friends, and we opened like a shared space. We had a shared calendar, and we were sort of like ships in the night where someone would have an appointment. So then we're all gone and whatever.
In theory,
that was the idea. It didn't really work out that way, but that was our first location. Our second location was in the same building. It felt like a huge stretch when we got that initial spot, because we went from having zero overhead to now all of a sudden we have to pay rent. And if you would have asked us at the time, again, we were only 6 months in or so, it was not the right time. We could not afford to have that space. But we were also thinking, well, can we really afford not to have the space? And what happened when we got our first location was we were able to get a pin on Google. And all of a sudden, we didn't have to network anymore, because people were finding us organically from searching online. Now, all of a sudden, we don't have a shortage of clients. And when they reach out, we could always use more. We could use more clients right now. We've always got capacity for more.
Of the right clients.
Good clients. But it was the first time ever that we'd ever experienced people reaching out to us. And that was from our first location. It was, again, going from paying nothing to having a rent was a really tough pill to swallow, but we had a futuristic mindset and we did it and it worked. And then we moved to our own space, which was about triple what we were paying in rent. And that felt like a huge stretch. And when we got there, we were thinking, oh my gosh, can you believe that we didn't do this sooner? And we were there for a few years. And then we moved to our space that we're currently operating in, which is, again, triple the rent payment. And as soon as we moved in there, like I said in the last episode, our revenues tripled, our profits quadrupled. And we're like, holy cow, can you believe we operated as long as we did over there? We're getting ready for another move. Again, tripling our rent payment, just keeps climbing and climbing and climbing. But we look back and there's a track record, and we know. I don't know specifically what it's going to look like, but I know it's going to pay off. We know it's the right time. I'm the least physically nervous about this move than I was about any of the other moves. We have so much confidence in what we do, how we do it, and the timing. It's still not feeling like the absolute perfect time. We got a lot of other things going on. We also happen to be really busy at work, and there's just a lot going on, but we know it's the right thing to do. It's a huge commitment. It's a huge financial investment. It's a huge pain. Nothing easy about it, but we know that the timing's never going to feel perfect. So let's do it, and let's practice what we preach.
Yeah, and like you said, there's a track record of this, and that's something that I think entrepreneurs believing in themselves and having confidence in the decisions that they make, or at the very least making decisions and then figuring it out, just making it make sense. I think it's underrated. I just think entrepreneurs in general are underrated, and there's something to be said for people who take action, for people who see something and it's maybe not wrong and it's not broken, but they go after something that's different and has the potential to be better.
Before we transition and talk about pricing, I want you to share your unpopular opinion about like office space or having a location.
So here we are in 2025. COVID was 5 years ago. And I think an unpopular opinion is that there are business owners out there who have convinced themselves that low overhead, such as simply having a home office, is the smarter move than going back to having a physical location. Let me expand on what I'm saying. I think that the culture has gotten used to this idea of work from home. And there was a period of years in which that was the norm and that was widely accepted and people were doing it and it was normal. And there are certain industries in which that's the way that things operate. You think about consultants or you think about graphic designers, like they probably don't need to have a physical location per se, because they're doing work, they're meeting at their clients' offices to get to know them and then creating things specifically for them. But there are other industries out there that have like a 50-50 split. Half of the businesses in that industry have an office, have a physical space, and the other half are just kind of operating out of their home offices or whatever. And I think of those businesses where there's a 50-50 split, I believe that there is money being left on the table for people who don't have a physical location, because people are looking for services and they're looking for services on Google. And there's something about that Google pin that attracts clients. There's something about seeing a physical location, even if it's not impressive, even if it's small, even if you're probably not going to meet there. There's something about a physical location, I think, that speaks uniquely to a potential client.
It also adds credibility. I mean,
Sure.
When we got our first Google pin, when we were brand new, we did not have all the experience or the credentials or any of that. But the fact that we had a location just gave us a sense of credibility that we didn't have before. And it made a huge difference. And you're missing out on that if you don't have that.
And then, fast forward and you're responding to inquiries rather than trying to drum them up in the first place. And I even remember when we were looking for our branding agency to kind of work through some branding stuff, I was looking at pins. I was clicking which companies are close to the office so we could conceivably get over there in the middle of the day. And the one that we ended up hiring, they had a pin. There was a number of other ones that were close by, but I clicked the thing and it's like, oh, this is just somebody's house. And it's not like I was thinking, oh, this person isn't legit because they have a home office. I'm just like, I don't really feel like going to somebody's house ever. Come to find out, the company that we hired, we never met them in the office. They came and they saw us. But I do think that people who don't have a physical space, that's where things are headed. I hate to be the bearer of bad
History
news.
repeats itself, but
Things are headed back to the office, and maybe not in every industry, but in a lot of them they are.
We're seeing it with our custom suit business too. We're getting a lot more people who are wanting to or needing to refresh their suits because they're back traveling, they're back in the office, they're wanting to dress up again. The whole like as casual as possible dress code thing, people are reverting. It's just a matter of time before that becomes the new norm. So if you're sitting here and you're thinking, I wonder if...
Or if you've convinced yourself that it's so nice to not have any overhead, and
which is nice,
and you're in an industry where a lot of people do, I just think it's an unpopular opinion. I maybe it's old school, but I don't see the harm in getting something. And I feel like your leads that you get or potential clients that reach out, I feel like that's going to increase overnight just by having some sort of a substantial Google presence, because you probably have a Google profile, but you don't have a Google pin. And we have found in our business that has made a big difference.
All right, last sort of timing thing, how to be strategic about timing would be raising prices. Like I said, this is a question that we get all the time from all sorts of people. And it's, when is the right time to raise prices? What should I do? Help.
So I'm going to say, first of all, I'm going to confirm that there's no such thing as the right time to raise prices. But then I'm also going to counter that and say, anytime there's any sort of uncertainty in the air, that is the time to raise prices. In 2020, business owners all over the world were essentially given permission to do whatever they wanted to stay in business.
Yeah, everyone's on their own. Survival of the fittest.
Just do what you can.
Quite literally.
Just do what you can to stay in business.
Yeah.
And I think many business owners took that as an opportunity to like, let me really dumb down my offerings. Let me try to get more people. Let me focus on more rather than better.
It was desperation.
It was the Wild
West,
right? And we didn't do that. We raised our prices. And our mentality was like, okay, if we're out of business, we're out of business. So is everybody else.
We already are.
So what's the business that when the dust settles, we actually want to run? And we gave ourselves permission to like, let's start operating like that business today. And let's have higher prices and let's have higher order minimums, and let's say no to things that we don't want to do. And let's do all of these things that a really successful business would do. And let's just operate that way. That's what we really want to do after all of this. I'm sick of dealing with, low spend, high maintenance clients. I want to work with high spend, low maintenance clients. So that was the permission that we felt like we had in 2020.
And by the way, I think this is one of those things where it doesn't matter what industry you're in or what you sell or how long you've been in business, whatever it is, this is one of those things that we all have in common. I think as far as talking about where your market positioning is in comparison to your competitors, I think one thing we all have in common is almost all of whoever you would consider your competitors to be, everyone is freaked out to raise their prices because they don't want to leave money on the table. And they're afraid that if they raise their prices, people will stop using them. They'll stop booking with them. They'll stop scheduling. That's the fear. And that's what's holding you back from raising your prices too. And we're here to tell you that's not what's going to happen.
No. And that isn't the only time that we've raised prices and changed things strategically in our business, 2020. I remember the first time we raised our prices.
I was just going to ask if you remember. Do you remember where we were sitting?
Yes.
Where?
At Empire Coffee.
Yeah, Empire Coffee. It's closed now. That was a great spot. I remember I used to feel like absolutely high when we would leave having drank that coffee.
Their coffee was so
strong. And I don't actually know what it feels like to be high, contrary to what Danny's been telling everybody. I'm not addicted to crack, but or anything else. But I remember
I'm addicted to entrepreneurship.
That's right. That is right. I remember we'd leave there.
Addicted to business.
I would just feel so out of body and I was like, oh, I don't feel so good. But I remember we were sitting there and we, for whatever reason, we're like, oh man, let's do it. It's time to raise our prices.
We evaluated. We're like, okay, what do people buy? What's the majority of what we sell? That should be the best margin thing.
Mm-hmm.
That should be a more expensive thing than a less expensive thing.
Makes sense, right? But I think a lot of people do it the opposite. Well, I sell a lot of this, so I don't need to raise the price on that, so I'll raise my price on the other things. No. Start with the thing that you're doing all the time, raise the price on that, and now your margin increases, and now all of a sudden your profits do too.
And we should say, like, we are in a low volume, high margin business.
Yes.
There are businesses out there that are high volume, low margin. This doesn't necessarily apply to that.
Yeah, not necessarily, but
in the business that we're in, and I would imagine a lot of small businesses are, low volume,
service
high margin.
Based. Yeah, you're working individually to some extent with people. Yeah, I think so. I think it's a safe assumption.
But we just ripped the Band-Aid off, and I remember thinking in that moment, like, oh man, we're gonna hear it. We're gonna hear it from our clients,
and then waiting. Oh, we haven't got an inquiry in 25 minutes. Do you think it's because we raised our prices?
Maybe.
Oh no. It's been an hour.
But we were thinking we were going to have to explain ourselves constantly, and literally 0 people said anything. And that was a great lesson to learn.
And that's what's happened every other time too, by the way. Every time we've raised our prices, again, we talk about us moving locations. Now there's a pattern that's proven itself. It's, it does pay off. It doesn't matter how scary it feels. It's the right thing to do. And you'll see. Same thing with the prices. It doesn't matter how scary it feels. It's the right thing to do. And you'll see. And the pattern was that it turns out it is what it is.
Well, and I should also say that in business, those of you who are, running your own business, your good clients want you to stay in business, and they will happily pay whatever it is that you charge, assuming it's justified, so that you can stay in business. The people you're after, the clients that you actually want to work with, want to pay you what you're worth. The clients you don't want are the ones who want deals.
They're the ones who are going to put up a stink and fuss
and ask you to prove yourself. And why do you charge this when I can go get something down the street for this? And it's like, okay, goodbye. You're not for me. This isn't going to work. If you don't want it, if you don't want to pay for it, I don't want you to have it.
That was another thing that we just in passing, our mentor Jeff said about what he does. He said something about if you don't want to pay for it, I don't want you to have it. And I wrote it down. I'm like, that's it. I get that. I resonate with that. And I say that constantly. And that's a mindset shift that at that point, we had a language to communicate. Of course, it's not like our tagline on our website, but It is something we have to remind ourselves of from time to time. And it might be worth thinking about. Listen, instead of trying to play down and play dumb and focus on price matching and you keeping your prices low and being scared to raise your prices in order to make what is actually a margin that you deserve to make. If you don't want to pay for it, I don't want you to have it.
Here's the other thing about appointment only, I think that we should say is this podcast is really geared for those of you small business owners who want to run a high-end small business.
Right.
Where you're catering to people who not necessarily want to pay what the price, but you're catering your business to a clientele that isn't going to throw a fit about things. You're catering to people who value their own time, and you value your own time. So that just so happens to be the people who you work with.
I mean, it's in the name.
Yeah.
Appointment only. That's how we run our business. It's appointment only. You can't just wander in and buy anything. You can't just show up. You also can't schedule an appointment yourself. You have to be pre-vetted and pre-qualified by us in order to land in our appointment calendar. And that's the bottom line of appointment only. It's this high end, because it's high touch, it needs to be high end and it needs to be something that is intentional. And Danny's right. This is for those of you who really want to level your business into that. And of course, it's going to look different. The way you communicate is going to be different. The thing you sell is going to be different. But that's our experience. And that's what we found to be so passionate about and what we know is possible, because we used to make excuses too, like, well, that's never going to work for me, or my prices could never start there, or I'll probably never regularly sell something that costs this much. Well, the only thing standing in our way was ourselves. And we know that now. And that's what appointment only is about. It's about having these conversations. Again, wish I could have heard this podcast 15 years ago. I think we would have been able to get to the point that we're at a lot quicker, but we're doing it now. And this is for those of you who resonate with what we're saying and the things that the overall sensibility of what it's like to run a small business, that you want to stay small. And the best way to run a successful small business is to run a really profitable one.
Yeah, the profit is the key word there, and revenue just doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. If you're not profitable, who cares how much you make? It's
fun to see sometimes, but if if it's all going out and your margins aren't any good and you're not, there's no profit left, what's the point?
Or if you're running your low volume, high margin business as if it's a high volume, low margin business, then you're not putting anything in the bank. And it's not about what you make. It's about what you keep.
Mm-hmm.
And that's who this podcast is for. It's not for the business owner out there who is trying to get their first client or trying to sell something for the first time. They can't relate to some of the things that we're talking about. This is for you who are listening, who you have a track record of being in business. You have clients, you sell products, and you love what you do, and you want to do it better. We're Appointment Only Pod on Instagram. And if you wouldn't mind, just because we're a new podcast, giving us a 5-star rating and what's the other thing we're supposed to say?
A review. We'd love if you would review, and anyone who reviews is going in a little drawing. If you happen to catch this in the first week or so, you have the chance. One lucky winner may win a new pair of AirPods. The last episode I said iPods. Not iPods.
I was hoping you were going to say iPods again.
No, AirPods. And I know it's just like a small thing. It's a small gesture. We appreciate you listening. And the ratings and the reviews are just helpful. And like Danny said, we're brand new. This is episode 2. So anything you could do would be helpful. And make sure that you're, what is it? It's following.
Got it.
Not subscribed. That's what they used to call it. Kind of like iPod.
Right.
They used to call iPhones iPods. Things change.
They sure do.
Things progress, just like your prices are about to change, right?
Speaking of the right time, the time for that rating and that review is now.
It's now. So go head on over there. And this appointment is officially over. We will catch you for the next one.